Oh, you need to unmute.
Okay. Welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming in your lunch hour session today. We're excited to share amazing speaker who will introduce shortly. I'm just going to do a few updates from Canterbury Tech. I'm Louisa Taylor. I'm the General Manager of Canterbury Tech, and then I'll hand over to Mariam Mato, who is our Treasurer and GM for Catalyst IT South Island, and she's going to introduce our speaker for today. We also have Jennifer Hewitt on board here. She's our Events and Marketing Manager. So if you ever need to get in touch with her, you'll recognise her face there. So first of all, we have thank you to our key annual sponsors. We've got the UC School of Business that brings us the most relevant MBA program and executive education program in the country. Got AWS, known for their infrastructure services, but ready to assist you with all sorts of business and technical knowledge areas. So if you're exploring something new, a great team to get in touch with. Lumen PDF, a global yet Christchurch headquartered business, giving you PDF editing and much more. Such an awesome team based here near Raora Park. Stratos Technology Partners, obviously their CEO, David Carter, has been a long-term supporter and committee member of Canterbury Tech, and Paula, who helps us out with accounts and memberships, also supporting from Stratos. Integration Works, just got their feet on the ground in Christchurch, busy expanding their team here. They do niche integration work, and so they've been helping Canterbury Tech out with integrating some of our systems together, which has been awesome. And Crescent Consulting, also your well-known Heidi, part of our tech ecosystem for many years, and we always welcome their support. So thanks to all our sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. We've got some awesome membership benefits. The UC School of Business is continuing to offer us a 10% discount to Canterbury Tech members. If you're a Canterbury Tech member, you need to email them rather than booking online. Just be careful with autocorrect, because it's exec ed and it will autocorrect to exceed, and then you won't get your discount. So execed@canterbury.ac.nz. There's great courses coming up in design thinking that's taught by me, so you can get a 10% discount on my course. Quick plug there. Awesome courses on futures thinking, sustainability, negotiation skills, and product management, so check that out. We have some really cool extensions of the work we've been doing last year and getting women into technology careers. Just on Sunday, I got a text from another woman who's been involved in it, just landed her first tech role. She was a music lecturer previously, and they're gonna, obviously she's perfectly capable of being put in front of a client straight up. They're going to help support her training as she skills up in technology. So another great success story out of that. I know Naitahu's just hired someone that they found in here as well, that's working on their support help desk. Really high caliber of people. So on February 28th, which is next Tuesday, there's a morning workshop aimed at women to describe their transferable skills. So skills which they may have gained in another career, but then how they can apply that to a tech career. So if you know any women that are looking to change careers, looking to polish up their CV or their interview skills, they can still sign up to that. And then the following month, on March 28th, we're inviting any employers to get involved, and we'll have what has been a very successful series of networking, curated networking with the women and looking for work and employers who have open roles. So if you're an employer who has an open role, make sure you have someone from your team there representing, because you are likely to find some gems. There's more information on our events calendar. Some of you may or may not know about the work that we're doing together with Dorenda Britain Limited. We just finished stage 1 at the end of last year of our Canterbury Tech Skills Pilot Program, which has been the research around what does good look like in attracting and supporting and retaining dyslexic people in the workplace. and we are moving on to stage 2 now. We've submitted our funding application to MB, and currently over the last 2 weeks we've been talking to various sponsors. We're very happy to have had the support of Vodafone in that stage 1 research. Couldn't have done it without them. Likewise MB, and our industry partners Indie Technology, Trimble and Focus Software, who are leading the charge in supporting their dyslexic staff by really delving into the best ways to support them to succeed in their careers. So watch this space if you'd like to know more. The next, we're putting on a few special events recently, and this one we've invited a range of different speakers to help us to navigate what to do to really get yourself through a recession. Will a recession even happen? What is a recession? All these questions answered. So we've got people from Deloitte, we've got people from Brannigan's, which is HR recruitment. We've got marketing people from Helen Shorthouse, who you may well know from Shorthouse Consulting, and we've got Chris Fairfield from AWS talking about what things you can do to recession-proof your business. This is really aimed at leaders of departments, CEOs, and we're hoping that you'll come out feeling like you've got like actionable insights and things that you can do positively to prepare for what may or may not happen over this year. So if you're interested, that's going to be at the BNZ Bank in Cashel Street. You can book your ticket. That's a free session because of thanks to sponsorship by AWS. The next thing is really a call out to all of our employers to fill out this digital tech skills survey. I mean, everyone loves a survey, and there have been a few surveys, but this is the survey, I guess, the mother of all surveys. We had a call from NZ Tech CEO Graham Miller telling us that Canterbury wasn't well represented in the data. We need to make sure that we are telling the central government agency, Toi Workforce Development Council, exactly what our businesses need so that they can get a much clearer picture of the differences between Canterbury's skill needs and other areas' skilled needs. So if there's a particular kind of role that you're struggling to hire, or there's barriers which are easily identifiable which are stopping you from doing that, then please have your say and fill out this skills survey. We really appreciate the more people can give us a bigger picture of the Canterbury situation. And some really exciting news about Tech Week. We're going to try something a little different. So Tech Week is a brand of NZ Tech, a national body, and that's usually run in May. So this year from the 13th to the 20th. We've been very lucky to have a collaboration with the Epic Centre, and they're going to let us use the Epic Centre as the centre of the universe for Tech Week so that we can create a tech hub. And so what we've done is we've structured a calendar from the Monday to the Saturday, so it'll be from the 15th to the 20th. Jen, if you just want to skip to the next slide there. And you can see the different days that we'll be running. So on Monday, rather than having it say like Geospatial Day or Engineering Day, what we're trying to do is wrap it around the future to meet with this theme of creating tech for a better tomorrow. So what does the future of transport look like? What are innovations happening in Canterbury? What's that much deeper future scenario look like, and where do we need to get to? So if you're interested in getting involved in that, please do get in touch at this email address below, which is techhub@canterburytech.nz. We do have sponsorship packages available to sponsor a day or to help us to put on free coffee at the Epic Centre. And we're going to try and run a job fair on the Thursday afternoon. So if you're from a recruitment company or involved in education courses, you might want to secure yourself a trestle table at that. And then on Friday, we're going to run a monster meetup. So the idea is to invite all the meetups in Canterbury to get involved in potentially sort of an unconference style event, and then have a big party on the Friday night with all the meetups. So we're looking for sponsors for those too. And on Saturday, we've got the people from Recycle a Device. Will be running a all-day workshop for 20 youth that are interested in getting a taste of electronics engineering, where they can repair a laptop themselves, but they also get to walk away with their own laptop at the end. So if you know any young people that really could do with a laptop but don't have one, then maybe fire them their details through to us at Tech Hub, and we can put you in touch with the people at Recycle a Device and secure them a place. There's only 20 places for that. And we've got a great event coming up with MOA, Ministry of Awesome. This guy's amazing, really quite a leader in his field. If you have intangible assets and you don't know how to value your business based on the data and the intangible things you have, this guy is Paul Adams from Everedge Global, is really the person to talk to. So they've got a 2-hour session on February 23rd, which is Thursday. So get your tickets now before they sell out, because that's really soon. And the last thing is just, we've been upgrading our website a little bit, and if you go to the events calendar page and you scroll underneath the events, there's lots of them there, you'll get to the subscribe to calendar button, and you can add the calendar to your work calendar, and you'll never miss a Canterbury Tech calendar event ever again. So I encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to that after this. Thanks. And now I will hand over to Marianne to introduce our speaker. Might need to unmute Marianne.
Oh yeah, she needs.
Marianne, you need to accept the unmute. There we go.
Where is she? Oh, you just unmute on your computer. Got it?
Yeah, got it. Cool. I think that was because everybody got muted, including me at the beginning. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks very much, Louisa. Kia koutou, ko Marianne Matai toku ingoa. As Louisa mentioned, outside of my day job at Catalyst IT, I'm one of the group of lovely volunteer committee members at the Canterbury Tech Cluster, working closely with Louisa and Jen, who are on the call today, as well as a number of other lovely and awesome committee members supporting the work of the Tech Cluster. So please allow me to introduce Dion Blair, the Chief Revenue Officer at Matomo. It's a bit of a bio from Dion. So Dion has a very interesting background. He started as a police detective in South Auckland and discovered his love for strategy, team building, and the desire for success into the SaaS world, B2B tech business environment. So after a stint at EQC, he moved to Sequent. Back then, I think it was called Ernst Geo, if I remember correctly. Starting out as an employee number 26 at the now very large organization. That was in 2011. And proceeded to build their global sales and marketing capability to an annual turnover of 100 million over the almost 9 years that he was there. This journey helped Dion to cement his love for being part of accelerated growth and putting polish into not yet fully polished teams and processes. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Dion to introduce this awesome service by Matomo. It is built on an open source platform, and it's very close to my heart because of this open source nature of it. Dion will talk about approximately 25 to 30 minutes, and then Q&A will be afterwards. But in the meantime, please feel free to add questions into the chat, visible to everybody, and we'll go through them afterwards. Thank you. Over to you, Dion.
Thanks, Marianne. Thanks for the kind invitation, and nice to see a couple of familiar faces, some of whom shared the Sequent journey alongside. So I guess just as a start, can't help but notice the gorgeous day that we have in Christchurch here today. But for anyone whose families or friends or are directly affected by the recent cyclone and flooding, heart and thoughts go out to you and family. We're often, it's very difficult to almost feel like you're in a different country sometimes when you go outside today in a day like we've got in Christchurch, and you realise that not too far up the road people are wondering what the sunrise holds for them today. So if there's anyone on this call or anyone's on this call whose families are affected, thoughts go out to you. So look, thank you hugely for the opportunity to speak and share, I guess, a little bit about the story of Matomo. Have you got the right screen, Jen? Have I got my PowerPoint? Yeah, happy days. So it's a bit of a story so far. I will caveat the story by, for those of you, and I'm sure there are many of you who are brilliantly minded and really intelligent. I'm neither of those things really. For those that might have deep-seated technical questions about the Matomo product itself, don't be discouraged from sending those, but please humour me in the fact that I'll likely need to take those away, come back to you with a succinct and technically correct answer, because it won't be me that's able to give you that. So let's go on the story, bit of an agenda here. We'll talk a bit about the why, I guess not so much Simon Sinek TED Talk material why, but just simply a little bit about why Matomo came about and the passion of Matt and Thomas, the co-founders, and really the essence of what Matomo has been about as its spine are all around privacy and the good use of doing the right thing with customer data, but still maintaining really nice transparency over what data you actually get. Talking a little bit about the business maturity of Matomo, and then some of the really important stuff around culture, and in particular that remote, not distant value that we've settled on as one of our values when you're 100% remote, and the benefits that go with that, but also the challenges that go with building a culture when you're not together, or when you're together very rarely. A little bit about Matomo. It's actually higher than that now in terms of websites that have used it, but 3.1 million websites. And you'll hear me talk a little bit about the market drivers and some of the judicial decisions that have played into Matomo's favour. But somewhat interestingly, neither of those drivers around judicial decisions and whether Google Analytics is legal or not in Europe has anything to do with our #1 user base being in the US or in Germany, because it's perfectly legal to use GA there, but they're our two biggest user bases. Matomo developed 40 features on top of simply the engine room that is the web analytics. I think one of the things I was always really proud of when we were at Sequent was to be able to tell clients that we reinvest so much of our gross revenue back into development, continuing to use their comments and their structure and their encouragement of us to develop back into the software rather than clipping the ticket and moving on. We are ranked by various search engines as the #1 alternative to Google Analytics. Not only that, but obviously the humble award that we got suggested that we might have actually got to that #1 in one particular mind, and currently used in 190 countries globally. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the mission and actually some of what that means, and some of really where the Matt and Thomas story came from. Now, Matthew Aubry is French. He's the CEO and co-founder. He's lived in New Zealand for 14 years now, lives in Wellington. And the other co-founder, Thomas Steur, Big Bay and Munich supporter, German, lives in Kapiti Coast. Both did exactly the right thing with their lives and married Kiwi woman, and therefore have become part of the land of the long white cloud and call this home. So the Matomo name is kind of a bit of a play on words, and also I guess a really directly important link to why Matomo is. Matomo is Japanese for honesty, but also the other part and the play part is that Matt and Thomas are Matomo, so that's sort of where the name comes from. So you see in the mission here, there's a couple of things around, comprehensive. What does comprehensive mean? Well, it's actually, as I spoke to you about in the slide preceding this, there are over 40 features that exist within Matomo. And I guess one of my both frustrations and opportunities is that Matomo as a product is a bit of a best kept secret. You wouldn't know how many things it does. And when they talk about it being an out of the box solution, it's a bit of a mystery. And that's a real opportunity from the marketing and sales side of things to actually reduce that from a mystery to actually being known. You see there that Matomo, or the vision, talks about being ethical, and in the eyes of the executive group and the co-founders, what does ethical mean? Well, that's about the open source piece, the transparency, the actual encouragement of hacking. We run a couple of competitions each year to actually see who can break some of the things within it and actually who can come up with some of the best development. So we're trying to stay engaged with that user community that's given Matomo its place, or a large reason that it's given its place in the world. It's now grown from that open source kind of cool kid, be part of the shirt tails of something different, to a community of 160,000 who use the free version. And that focus on privacy, transparent security, customer data not being used for other purposes, and mostly the empowerment of web professionals to have full control over their data. You'll see there that it talks about being approachable. What does approachable mean? So that's about ease of use. And that's also a big challenge for Matomo, because it's now got to that point in its existence where, I think we'd need to be humble enough to suggest that at times the user experience is really that slick. It's a little bit dated, and that has also posed a challenge for me at times when you look to encourage some of the ways we might create relevance and currency. You feel like you're poking the bear, or the baby, so to speak, that is the baby that the co-founders have produced with such love and care. So that's at times been a real challenge. Approachable also talks about the support response that we give, moving away from being solely reactive and thinking about the evolution into a more proactive, customer-centric type existence. Easy to say, not necessarily so easy to then do. Approachable in the sense that it's both cloud and on-premise, and once again, the on-premise adds obviously that extra layer of security, but I'd have to say the on-premise is also yet another of Matomo's best kept secrets. And then the whole open issue tracking piece, letting the community see what it is that they've put into, GitHub, and what's alive and what's not yet developed. And then the last part I wanted to talk a little bit about on the vision here is the compliance and that privacy issue worldwide. And I didn't know this myself when I came into the business, but in Austria was the first country, then there was France, then there was Italy, and then there was Denmark, all last year. And the data regulators, or the data privacy organizations or judicial bodies within those 4 countries ruled Google Analytics as illegal. So, and so what? Well, obviously that's a great market driver when you're looking to be an alternative to that which has just been made illegal. I'd be lying to say that I didn't like that. But also what it meant was, for marketers who were looking for an alternative, the CNIL, C-N-I-L, which is the judicial agency in France, were recommending Matomo as the alternative that they should be looking for. You couldn't ask for better advocacy or advertorial than that. But one of the reasons behind those judicial decisions were that they came down to sort of 3 key factors. One was that any business obtaining data on its website is responsible for understanding A, where the data is going, B, who's receiving the data, and C, how the data is protected. And one of the big issues Google Analytics had, A, it's a gorgeous product and very easy for marketers to use, but they were then hosting, or they do host, all of their data in the US. And what that does for an EU website is it means that your data is at any point in time available for scrutiny by a US surveillance agency, and that is not a place of safety for an EU business. whether that happens or not, I guess it's, ultimately it's down to interpretation. But that was really the key thing here. And initially I thought, why don't they just change and become GDPR or privacy compliant? And then I realized that Google makes $352 million a year on their advertising aspect of sampling data and giving it to third parties. So they've got no real motivation to change, because that's quite a nice revenue stream. So they're not likely to want to change. And again, caveat this really carefully by saying this is not designed to be a kick in the pants to Google or Google Analytics, because they make a superb product for marketers. But what it allowed us to begin to see is that GDPR, not so much in New Zealand, because what does it, we might have some policies around that, but we're not getting potentially fined 4% of our revenue or up to 20 million euros, which is what they're doing in those countries where it's illegal. So that's really the sort of story that brought us to, or giving you some context around the mission. And then the why, I guess, when I spoke to Matt about what his whole purpose was in designing what initially was PWIC Pro, and then they went down a path that were targeting enterprise customers, and he really didn't want that. They were wanting venture capital and investment, and he wanted to stay true to this whole body of community and the essence of doing good for good. And yes, while that might compromise revenue and profitability, that's really the essence of why Matt and Thomas did this. Which I think, they want to be around, and they want Matomo to be around in 20 years and not owned by Google or a Google, sideshow. So I think, that's cemented where they want this to be. And I think Matt had said that, he was driven by his passion for software engineering and the internet, but he really quickly realized that there was no emphasis on privacy, and actual real privacy was hard to achieve online. Because measurement technologies weren't built for privacy. So hence Matomo was born. So effectively, the why has come down to this data accuracy and empowering others through insights, and the customers, the onboarding, the support, the time to value, particularly if you have a product-led growth strategy. How quickly do you let your customers experience a frictionless user experience? And by no means is Matomo top of the class in that regard. It's very much a desire and a future state. And then the whole essence of privacy and GDPR compliance. And it's at this point, I guess, I go back to that previous slide that showed that it's not illegal to use Google Analytics in Germany, and it's obviously certainly not illegal to use Google Analytics in the US. Yet the drive towards privacy has really pushed those two countries into, being our top two users. So I think, as Matt had said, we're starting to see, and even, the essence of one of the keys to this particular talk was about how we knocked Google off the top perch of the web analytics tool. There is really an emergence of privacy-focused technologies, notwithstanding the global judicial regulations. It's really starting to put pressure on existing companies to implement and respect privacy. And a customer said to me really recently in a nice way that summed it up. One of the things Matomo allows her to do is to understand exactly what her users do in the journey that is their website, but stay true to the integrity of that customer, because they don't need to share that customer's data with anyone else. And I kind of, I guess, from the voice of a customer, that was kind of nice, quite a nice context. So you've heard me talk a bit about the why and the market drivers. And actually, one of the other points about market drivers outside of the judicial decisions is that GA3 as a product is sunsetting in July, and they've now made GA4, and now again consumers or marketers have a choice. And interestingly, with the GA4, what they've done is kind of gone back to what Matomo did in the start, and that is Matomo made it, because not surprisingly they were real data scientists and tech geeks who developed this. And therefore it really appealed to web analysts and data analysts, those who were happy to be surrounded by and cascaded by data. But marketers in general aren't necessarily in that same happy place. They want to know that something's accurate, but potentially give me the dashboard and the rolled up version of this, and I'll just trust that, you know, you're doing what you're doing underneath the hood. GA4's kind of gone back to where Matomo was in creating really rich data and analytics and web analytics, albeit, you know, they still have their compliance and GDPR issues. But Matomo's now looking to be more generalist, and that comes with its own tensions. You know, what generalists expect to see is slightly less cascading of data and being immersed in the data science of it all. Still needs the accuracy, but also if we kind of look at, you know, moving to a future state, there are 30,000 to 50,000, depending on what data you consume from, new websites in activity every day. And, you know, not all of those, probably 50% of those will come with a need to have an analytics tool associated to it. So, you know, that is a really a very real market driver. And I put a little kind of one of the companies that we've been dealing with that are a customer of Matomo's, that produce these big carbon reduction machines. And, you know, similar to what we need to do with our own DNA is making sure that we're squeaky clean. And they produce these big machines in Greenland so that they can, or in Iceland, sorry, so that they can feed off the power from the renewable energy. But one of the things that they were have been talking to us about is how you make a carbon zero website. Because with 30 to 50,000 new websites every day and the 1.98 billion websites that are in existence now, albeit, you know, some of those aren't active. You know, one of the things we've been discussing aside market driving is, well, how does a web analytics tool help a website become carbon neutral ultimately? And there's many websites like this one you're seeing here, which is, you know, a sort of a carbon tester, and I've just plugged the Matomo website in there, and it tells us, hurrah, we're 64% cleaner than the other pages. But actually, what are some of the ways that an analytics tool assists? So you've got, for those marketers out there, you've got the likes of enabling caching, where, you know, a technique that stores frequently accessed data on a user's computer or server, and obviously a product or a web analytics product such as Matomo, you know, helps the website identify opportunities for caching on their site. Optimizing code and images, you know, a web analytics tool can help empower a web professional to identify performance issues, tracking website speed and analysis of user behavior. So outside of some of those market drivers that are occurring now with judicial decisions and drives towards privacy, there's kind of an ongoing market here in that more and more of us, certainly through lockdown periods and COVID, our buyer behaviors have changed. We do so much more online, hence the presence and the power of websites. Let me move off from that, move on to some, I guess, probably my happiest place, and that is, I wanted to touch briefly actually on, in the last slide, I talked a little bit about our business DNA. And actually we've faced our own challenges in being, not in being GDPR compliant or privacy friendly, but actually what has that meant for us as a business? And, you know, we've done some really nice work with Concentrate here in Christchurch and getting a CRM. When I came into the business, there wasn't a CRM. I was somewhat horrified. You've got 10,000 paying customers, 160,000 free users, and you don't have a CRM, my word. And this respect for privacy, this respect for anonymity had almost gone too far, in my view, where we know nothing about our customers. Pretty hard to be customer centric and understand the needs of your customers when you don't know them. So we actually had to do it. I did a lot of due diligence. It wasn't just about identifying what you'd normally do with a CRM and comparing features and functions. We've had to involve a lot of due diligence around actually being GDPR compliant. Likewise, with using our own Matomo instance to actually understand our users' behavior and what they do on our website. We're not allowed to do some of that because we would be diving too deep and breaching our customers' privacy. So that's tough in itself. You can't eat your own dog food, so to speak. You know, and recently we've put together a masterclass series, you know, using a webinar platform that had to be GDPR compliant as well, and took, you know, extra time doing due diligence. So there's a trade-off as well in looking to be ethical and keep to that really high level of accountability that you impose on yourselves. Let me touch briefly on addressable market here, and obviously, you know, as a CRO, obviously I'm charged with the revenue and the domains of revenue creation in our business, ways to get people into our product. And I think, you know, for anybody in that type of role, and even at marketing, you know, you're always looking to understand what is your addressable market, what's the blue ocean. And I touched on that before. There are 1.98 billion websites in the world. 83% of those are active at any one time. And obviously you've got the onflow of new websites every day. So there's a pretty sizable prize here for, you know, analytics solutions. There's enough meat in the sandwich for everybody. But then effectively, you know, looking to drill that layer beneath and quantifying the serviceable addressable markets, you know, what, and then I guess beneath that, we did a lot of this when, you know, when I was at Sequin, and that understanding the market segmentation. What's the financial status? Can they afford to buy your product? What's the psychographic behaviors? What are their needs? What are their priorities? What geographies are they in? And what are their behavioral interests? And actually that's been another big challenge for us in terms of that behavior, is creating user journeys. What does a marketer want to see when they come into the Matomo product or they come into the Matomo website? Because it's not the same journey if you're a web analyst or if you're a CMO or if you're a digital, everyone's got different needs and what they want to see and what they need to see to feel that this is a credible journey. So the business maturity, and again, I talked a little bit about the product, you know, and how the challenges initially when I came into the business around poking the baby, so to speak. This has been around for 12 or 13 years. We've built 10,000 paying customers. There's nothing wrong with it. But, you know, and that's true. Success in the past is one indicator. But if you want to become, if you truly want to scale and accelerate, which the co-founders do, then, you know, one of the big ways to do that when you're a product-led growth strategy company is, what does the product do in terms of an experience? You know, what is it as a web analyst? Firstly, a web analytics solution that gives it robust, credible existence in a business. But more importantly, what are the things that a customer expects a web analytics product to do? Not just what you expect it to do. There's a degree of humility involved in that. What type of developers do you need to hire? What is the philosophy and your tenacity of your product managers and your product owners? And there's been a really nice tension in that regard. The market positioning, you know, ultimately when I first came in the door and opened it, so to speak, and the coffee that you smell was that Matomo's own homepage, still to be fully evolved, but Matomo's homepage basically said, we're not Google. Really? So we're not someone, that doesn't really tell you who you are. Just not being someone isn't really talking about the Matomo mystique. What is that? What is it you do? What is the backstory people want to get involved with? You know, Kiwis primarily, I think, we love an underdog. We love someone who's got a good backstory, and we love someone who's doing something for a greater good. All of those things exist, except when you open the door and you see, oh, you're not them. It's a pretty dull opening message. So, you know, there's a market positioning piece, you know, that needs to be and is continuing to be looked at. And the last part I want to touch on here is the whole remote and not distant. And this was actually a line that we've done some really great work with Claire Swallow, who runs a New Zealand company called Mulberry Street, all about businesses understanding their why and their purpose and aligning to that, particularly when you're fully remote. You know, those little, I guess what we would call, for want of a better cliche, the water cooler moments, the moments where we actually get to know what someone's likes are outside of work, what they do in the weekends, what, you know, when you live a life that's primarily a rectangular box divided by 45-minute increments, and you have your agenda at the start and your action points at the end, it lacks the personalization. And when that's 100% of your world, and yes, there's greater good for that, you know, you're not putting a footprint on the, in terms of people commuting to work, there's no offices, there's, you know, it's good for both the business externally and business internally in terms of needing to rush and being able to be more flexible with a family. But actually, ultimately, people at work want to belong to something. They want to know that what they do counts, and they want to know that, you know, the business is going to be around in time, and that's a good thing to talk to people about. I'm part of this company. So these are real challenges for Matomo, being connected to that purpose and being aligned. So I guess in summary, being aligned and working towards achieving that alignment through having built a great product, looking at ways in which that product becomes relevant to more of the addressable market and what that addressable market expects to see from it. More importantly, not taking your eyes off the nucleus or the heartbeat that gave you success, and that was the community. How do you create continued success, but not leave those that helped you get to where you are behind? We were recognised at the start of the year by a company called W3 Tech, which is an independent survey organisation, as being the web analytics tool of the year. And in true humble fashion, the CTO and the CEO really didn't sort of want to make too much of a song and dance about it. But I thought it was a nice inflection point, not so much to go externally, although we have, you know, been recognised now on a fair number of international articles and publications, but just actually to bring our people back to being aligned to why we do what we do, that backstory, the underdog. It's the first time in 11 years that Google hasn't won the award. Google and Adobe have been number 1 and number 2 respectively for 11 years in a row. And what's interesting about that particular survey from W3 Tech is that they don't measure on just growth, year-on-year growth, because obviously that would be pretty easy for a small fry to come in and set it alight with a high volume growth. They do it on actual customers acquired. So it's a pretty humbling sort of a measure and an indicator, I guess, that we're on the right track. By no means, you know, pausing for, we don't have time to pause for reflection for too long, but I thought it was a really nice opportunity to pause for some reflection for the team that we've got, give back to the developers, for example, to say, look, what you developed in this last year, look at what it's done for the audience, you know, some of the product team, look at what's happened and look at what the results are, so that we look to create that cohesion and belonging. That's me. Thanks for listening. Thanks again, Louisa and team, for the invite to speak, and more than happy to answer any questions. And I'll hand the screen sharing back to you, Jen.
Thanks very much, Dion. Really appreciate it. So while we wait for people to add some questions, if they have any, I got a couple of questions. Some of this might be in the space where you said, okay, we might need a little bit more technical response. But I was wondering, so you mentioned Matomo has potentially the clients are using it 2 different ways. One is in the cloud or on premise. So then customers use it in the cloud. Where is their data hosted? Which data centers or what countries?
Yeah, so we obviously we host. It's an unusual situation because as a New Zealand company, you sort of fall slightly outside GDPR regulations. But for EU hosted customers, we use AWS. That in itself, you know, whilst it's a gorgeous server system as well, but we need to be really careful about which servers we're using, because they obviously have to stay within the EU, and that's also been an ongoing issue, looking at server capacity and profitability of what we host and can continue to host, given, you know, some of our clients are, you know, up to 50 million web hits a month. So, that puts a lot of pressure on both server size and capacity, and obviously compromises at times profitability. But yeah, that's a great question. Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah, thank you. And when they host on-premise, what would be their considerations? Why would they choose to host on-premise? So what sort of companies do they host on-premise? What sort of services do they provide that requires that?
Yeah, so we see a lot of banking organizations, pharmaceutical companies that choose on-premise, because obviously that gives them that greater degree of security. Nobody can see effectively in the door, so to speak. And we see a lot of those companies also using the Matomo sort of features, such as heat maps and session recordings and analytics and cohorts and the like, so that effectively they are the biggest issue, well, not issue, the biggest consideration with them is just the configuration up front, making sure that everything's bedded down for their compliance. But after that, it's pretty much hands off for us, and they've got a very tightly protected environment at that point.
And does that mean it's kind of a separate special snowflake, and it's kind of merged off from your main SaaS offering, or is it still in line with updates and all that? With the
so they still, exactly. So they'll still get access to any updates that occur. The development team they run 2 weekly sprints, so the development cycles are fairly regular, and then they'll just be invited to download those onto their server.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. How big is the team in New Zealand, and what sort of percentage works on site in an office, and what percentage works remotely?
So I can tell you that it's 100% remote. There are no offices. Matomo have no offices, either in New Zealand or globally, and that's been, it's an interest from a traditionalist's point of view. Where you have maybe come to an office a couple of days a week or whatever. It's an interesting challenge. But yeah, 100% remote. So in terms of answering the question, it's an easy one. How many work from an office? None. Everyone is a home office. The other thing that we've really started to promote is that we've got a few international folk in our business, and even our own CEO, the friend Matthew and Thomas, they go home for 5 weeks in July, go and see their family, and they work from home. One from Germany, one from France. We had a marketer who was in Wanaka from Belfast in Northern Ireland. She went home for a month last year. So there's a real ability to try and promote that work from anywhere type of an adage.
Cool. We got a couple of questions now coming through online. So one is then from Danielle. You mentioned that remote, not distant. Can you please let us know more about how you have implemented this culture?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, Daniel. It's very much still a work in progress. We did a fairly robust session with the team last year, October last year, around what does success feel like, look like, need to feel like, look like, what do they think they're a part of? And then really in terms of, we do an all hands once a month, like a lot of tech organizations. We use Slack on a daily basis for wow moments and aha moments. And, it's a matter of finding a cadence, I think, with how regularly you post and what about. I've certainly taken a very conscious decision to look for ways in which we've delighted a customer, or a customer has said something good about us, and then playing that back to particularly teams like developers, who often do what they do, push that out there, and then probably don't hear much about that afterwards. So, at the organization we grew from sort of 8 people to about 38 people now over the last 15 months. Then, it's important that you look to find ways, as many ways as you can, to give regular updates to people in tangible ways that said, this is what we did, here was the outcome, and thank you for that.
That's really awesome. And I think that answers the question from Danielle as well. What did you do to bring success back to the team? Another question from Miho. Thank you for your presentation. How aware, concerned are New Zealand businesses about GDPR?
Great question, Miho. Look, do you know what? If I was brutally honest, I don't think they are yet, because, effectively, it's one of those nice to haves. And I would say the word concerned, I think the awareness I think is high. Concerned, I think, is an interesting word because concern generally has some degree of reaction to an action. And if you weren't GDPR compliant and you were completely reckless with your customers' data, not suggesting that some company's going to go out there to look to do that, but what really would the ramifications be? Probably not a lot, as opposed to the very high level here of talking about Austria and Italy and Denmark and France. If you aren't doing the right things with your customers' data, then there are, pretty serious fines. It's, there's a lot of public data around about those judicial bodies are looking to try and work collaboratively with those organisations to help them change, rather than it being a beating with an iron stick. But I don't know that. I mean, our customer base in New Zealand, I think we have about 2,000 customers in New Zealand. It's in contrast to, say, the 350,000 customers we've got in Germany, using both the free and the paid version. That's because they're much more concerned. It's very much a daily talking point for legal, marketing and IT teams in Europe around privacy, GDPR.
Thanks, Dion. And a shout out from Paul Svetanam. Thanks for the great talk, Dion. A real Kiwi success story, and awesome to see such a privacy-focused company.
Thank you, Paul.
Another question from Nick Thomas. Does Matomo offer CEO and keyword performance same way as GA does? Thank you, and good to see you again, Dion.
Yeah, great to see you, Nick. Really nice to hope everything's well, mate. Been a long time. Yes, so in short, yes, it does. It's just how you visualize that and the way in which that goes about that would be slightly different in terms of how you would have expected to see it in GA. But the answer, in essence, in terms of out of the box functionality, does it? Yes, absolutely. Keyword performance and SEO, and actually one of the things that we've spent a fair bit of time this last 6 months developing is how do we allow an organization to bring all of their keyword searches from Google straight into Matomo, so that you've got effectively from day one the same keyword search performance, and there's a specific sort of migration button effectively that so rather than that sort of being a days or a month or what Google are finding. Again, I've got to be careful. I said that this wasn't going to be a kick Google in the pants session, and it's not designed to be that. But one of the reasons that customers who are now realizing that GA3 is sunsetting and moving to GA4, GA3 won't allow a migration of keywords into GA4. Matomo will allow a migration of keywords, all of your Google keywords, straight into Matomo.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks, Dion. And you mentioned that the company has about 38 staff at the moment, is it correct? Are you hiring at all?
We are. Great question. So we're looking for software developers, senior software engineers. We'll soon be going to market again for some more marketing positions ourselves. So I expect that we'll probably hire somewhere in the vicinity of about 20 staff through the course of this year. 10 of those will probably be in the development type and engineering roles. We're looking for a people and culture manager at the moment. So yeah, those roles I think can be seen on the careers page of the Matomo website.
Excellent. And one question from Tommy James Cog. After seeing you not kicking Google in the pants, are you now looking at taking some of those offboarded clients by them and onboarded to Matomo?
Great to see you, Tommy. Thanks for the question. Yeah, look, I think, again, I'm a big lover of my stats and addressable market. I think, the stats currently right now show that there are 36 million websites globally that have Google Analytics 3 still associated with them. I think at last read, about 5 or 6 million of those websites had migrated to GA4, and there are still 30 million websites that are yet to migrate either or choose something else. effectively, we're an open door. It's our own marketing efforts that are looking to try and promote Matomo as a brand, and also be a little more holistic as to what Matomo, rather than that staying in the one space that we're a Google Analytics alternative and we're GDPR and privacy. Yes, that's true, but we're also a lot of other things, and we're needing to try and find the sweet spot of what those messages are. But I guess in answer to Nick's question earlier, one of the ways that I guess we're making the ease of attraction before they're even offboarded is, if you want to bring your Google keyword, some agencies, marketing agencies or businesses have spent a lot of time on SEO and keywords. They've built that discipline up over years and they don't want to lose it. So there's a really easy way for them to do that. And the other great thing, actually, one of the nice things I like about Matomo and the Kiwi aspect of playing nice, is that you can actually run Matomo and Google together. So where you might get 60% or even as low as 40% of your data from Google, you'll get the rest and all of it from Matomo. So it's actually one of those nice stories that you don't have to have one and the other, or the other. You can actually have both, which again I think is a nice play nice. So hopefully that answers your question, Tommy.
Thank you. Anthony, I confirm I switched from GA to Matomo. It was easy. I love being compliant and having my data on my own servers. Nice one. It's a nice shout out to your services. So with regards to growth, what are your goals in terms of growth, growing your customer base in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so this one's a bit of a big one, I'll be honest. So the exec has gone with the BHAG of 140% customer growth this year. So not for the faint-hearted. And I think a lot of the reason for that tenacity this year is obviously having me in the business. No, not at all. Is actually is the fact that GA3 is sunsetting. I think people are forced up to and beyond July and into July of next year, when they're going to honour that for a further 12 months. People have to make a decision. And, again, I talk about market drivers. You couldn't ask for a better market driver. It means that we've been really tenacious, and it also means we've got to pull our own socks up in terms of that user experience, both from our website and the product itself. So it's tenacious, but I guess that's why I joined. I love a thrill of the ride like this, where you're either going to get there by a long way, or you're going to get there and you're going to get there by no way at all.
Not for the faint-hearted, no pressure, Dion. We will be watching this space. I think that was all the questions. Have I missed any, Jen? No, great, awesome. Thank you so much, Dion. Really,
thanks for having me.
Great to see this company succeeding and the service, and we will be watching this space intently to see how you get on, and maybe another update in a year's time, and then see how you got on with that 130%.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Well, you'll probably be a few more grey hairs and a couple of wrinkles.
Oh, it should be easy peasy. It's only Google. Awesome. I'll hand over back to Louisa. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming, and thank you so much, Dion. That was really fascinating to see where you're going, and thanks for the sort of warts and all open sharing of your journey. We look forward to hearing from you again. Thanks everyone, and we'll hopefully see you at our next events on next Tuesday, and one on Jen. Hand over to the person that knows.
Thursday. We have an event Thursday. We have an event Tuesday. And then we have our in-person March 7th as well. So lots of events coming up. Like I said, I'll send out a link to the replay to this, which will be uploaded to YouTube, and I will include Dion's contact information as well. So if anybody wants to ask any technical questions that he can relay to his team, he will. And also I'll put the link to subscribe to our events calendar in that email as well to make it really easy. So
fantastic. Our in-person event next month is Ngāi Tahu's new CIO Beres Moore talking about digital strategy for social good. So that's going to be a really interesting talk about her journey to develop digital strategy for what is essentially a small country. So look forward to seeing you there for drinks and nibbles. And thanks very much for your coming and joining during your lunchtime. We'll see you soon. Thank you.